I have always been fascinated by frogs, and it's through them that I started my journey into photography. I have been breeding poison dart frogs for years, and I have also taken many pictures of them. Poison dart frogs are the jewels of the rainforest, beautifully colored, and on top of that, they have a very interesting biology. They come in all colors of the rainbow and can be found in the Central and South American rainforests. So, I have been there quite often to look for them and to photograph these wonderful animals. But most of my frog pictures have been taken here in Europe with studio light. In this video I show you how I went about and what equipment you need to take these kind of images. It can be done either with a large studio softbox or with a smaller flash combined with a small softbox. The second method you can use in the field, but you will probably need some assistance to keep the flash in place. In most of my frog pictures I use backlighting, combined with light from above and a little reflective fill light. This gives the image a special mood and a glow. Lighting like this creates a play of light and shadows that accentuates the body shapes and the structure of the skin. Like you can see in this picture, for example. Also, this type of lighting creates a sense of depth in the image. For most frog species, this technique works perfectly. But for other species, this lighting doesn't always give the desired results. Backlighting and overhead lighting can create reflections that go in the direction of the camera. And when these reflections become too large, then the image doesn't work. Then these reflections become distracting, instead of adding to the image. Most frogs do have some texture on their skin. They're not totally smooth. And it is this texture that creates a very nice effect when backlit, as you can see here in this image. Most of the light on the frog comes from behind, and this gives a very nice effect on the texture of the skin. Other frogs, like these strawberry dart frogs, have a very smooth skin. And when you use backlighting or lighting from the top on these frogs, you often end up with a very distracting reflection. Now, not all poison dart frogs allow themselves to be pictured easily. Some species are just extremely difficult. Almost all forms of Dendrobates auratus will push themselves down when you want to take a picture of them. The frogs just will lie down on their bellies and strike a pose that you will never see in nature. It really takes patience to get them into the right position. Other species like Amarega trivitatus never sit still, they keep on jumping, so most of the time you will be spending catching and placing the frog in position. You really need a lot of patience to take pictures of these species, and as you can see in all these images, I've been patient enough to get good images of them. When taking pictures of these frogs, there are a few things to keep in mind. The skin of frogs is quite fragile, so it should never dry out, so wet them regularly. Also make sure that the temperature is high enough. They're tropical animals and they really can't stand cold. The temperature should be around 24 degrees. Before I start taking pictures of the frogs, I try to find a nice plant or branch to place them on. And I always do a few test shots before putting the frogs in place. Try to give them as little stress as possible. The settings for my camera are an aperture of f16, a shutter speed of 1/125 and an ISO between 100 and 400, depending on the strength of the flashlight. I adjust the strength of the flashlight to get a proper exposure. This is a setup that I use for studio photography. A large softbox, one single light source. At the back I use a dark cloth. I place the frog at the very front, so most of the light will come from the back. This is an overhead view of the setup. You can clearly see that most of the light illuminates the frog from behind. Here you can see the setup from the side. In this way you get mostly backlight and light coming from above, from this area here. Only a small part of the light exposes the front of the frog. Like this, the underside of the frog will remain quite dark. So I solved this by attaching some white reflection screens to the side and to the front of the softbox. Now there's some light reflected to the front part of the frog, and in this way I'm able to create a very soft light to fill it in. You can use white cardboard or even just some white paper, as you can see here. I also put some white paper on the bottom in front of the frog to lit up the underside of the frog a little more. Here you can see the setup. Some big leaves with the frog on and a softbox very close above the frog. The closer you bring it to the frog, the softer the light will be. Towards the back, the softbox is placed a bit higher to spread more light towards the frog. In this side shot, you can clearly see that the softbox tilts forwards towards the frog. You can also see here that I attached some white paper to the front side to reflect the light back towards the frog. It's a soft fill light that I want to create. Here in this top view you can clearly see how these reflection screens allow more light to fall on the front of the frog. Without these reflection screens, the front of the frog would be far too dark. Now let's look at some pictures that I took using this lighting technique. Here in this portrait of a Dendrobates leucomelas, you can clearly see how the backlighting accentuates the texture on the back of the frog. It creates a very nice soft glow. In this picture of the same species, the light comes more from above and there's no backlight. The reflections on the back of the frog are not as pleasing. I prefer the first picture. Here's another comparison. Two pictures of Ranitomea vanzolini. In the first one, most of the light comes from the front and from above. And this results in a less attractive reflection on the flank of the animal. In the second picture, most of the light comes from behind. On top of the head and the knee, you can see a nice glow. In this picture, the softbox was only a few centimeters from the frog, and the closer the softbox to the frog, the nicer and softer the light will be. Here's another image of Ranitomea flavovitatus. You can clearly see the beautiful influence of the backlight and the overhead light combined with some fill light from the reflection screens. The structure of the skin comes out very nicely and the frog has a very beautiful glow without any disturbing reflections. Sometimes it takes some searching to get the light at the right angle, but when it works, the results are incredibly beautiful. And even for some frogs with real smooth skin, the technique can work if you put the softbox really close to the frog and you create more backlighting than light coming from the top, just as you can see here in this image of another strawberry dart frog. Of course, you can't take a big softbox to the rainforest. Then I use a small flash combined with a small softbox. In this picture I opted for minimalistic lighting. Most of the light comes from behind and a little bit of light skims over the front of the frog. This is the setup that I used, a small flash with a softbox where the flash was held above the frog. The front of the flash is slightly behind the front of the frog. The result is a beautiful minimalistic image, a silhouette, with some small extra accents on it. I used the same technique on this millipede. A combination of a lot of backlighting with a little bit of light coming from the top, coming from one single flashlight. For this Boana geographica, the lighting is slightly different again. For a picture like this, I need an assistant to hold the flash. The flash with the softbox was held just above the frog, so that most of the light came from behind. Here the softbox is placed a little bit more forwards than in previous picture. Now a small amount of light comes from the front onto the frog. To keep the front of the frog from being too dark, I held a reflection screen while holding the camera, so the light was reflected to the front of the frog. The texture of the skin is clearly visible, and the glow on the frog's head is amazingly beautiful. I really love this picture. As you can see in all these images, backlight plays a very important role when I take pictures of a frog. The play of light and shadows, the texture of the skin, and the beautiful glow make the image for me. I must say that I don't always succeed in creating the best lighting on the frogs. They won't always stay put in the best position. They tend to move a lot, so I can only try to get the best results. But if I succeed to get them in the right pose and position, then I got a winner. Greatly thanks to this lighting technique.